Yes. Sir, may I? Honorable Chief Guest, respected Director General of BIISS and today's chair of the session, distinguished speakers, esteemed guests, ladies and gentlemen. Assalamu alaikum and a very good afternoon to all of you. On behalf of Bangladesh Institute of International and Strategic Studies, BIISS, may I welcome you all to today's seminar titled Mitigating Economic Fallout of Middle East War in Bangladesh, organized by this institute. We are deeply honored to have among us Dr. Rashid Al Mahmoud Titumir, Honorable Advisor, Ministry of Finance and Ministry of Planning, Government of the People's Republic of Bangladesh, as the chief guest of today's program. Our chief guest will join us shortly. Distinguished participants, the program will commence with a welcome address by today's chair of the session, Major General ASM Ridwanur Rahman, Director General BIISS. This will be followed by three presentations by our distinguished experts. Professor Dr. Izaz Hussain, Chairman, Estex Foundation, will present on energy price sourcing and strategic reserve. The second presentation will be given by Mr. Inamul Haq Khan, Senior Vice President, BGMEA, on trade and market diversification. Finally, Dr. Mahfuz Kobir, Research Director, BIISS, will present on inflation, macroeconomic adjustment, and recovery. Following the presentations, the floor will be open for discussion. We will then have the privilege of hearing from our honorable chief guest. Thereafter, today's session chair, Major General ASM Ridwanur Rahman, Director General BIISS, will offer his valuable concluding remarks. May I now request the session chair to kindly commence the program with a welcome address. Thank you.
Bismillah Rahman Rahim. The esteemed speakers of today's seminar, distinguished guests, representatives from the media, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum and good afternoon to you all. It's a pleasure to welcome you all in this BIS seminar titled Mitigating Economic Fallout of Middle East War on Bangladesh. We convene at a moment of profound geopolitical uncertainty. The ongoing conflict in the Middle East has evolved beyond a regional security crisis into a systemic shock to the global economy with dire consequences. The collective declaration of a 2-week ceasefire can at best be considered as a temporary relief for the global community. As I was just listening to one of the Al Jazeera reporter who was expressing the feelings of Persian population, they termed it as cautious optimism. So that tells us that we ought to remain prepared with contingencies for resurgence or even further deterioration of this volatile geopolitical landscape of the Middle East. Ladies and gentlemen, as highlighted in our concept note, for Bangladesh, this escalating conflict has precipitated a complex wave of economic challenges, exposing our structural vulnerabilities across multiple domains like energy security, trade logistics, and external sector stability. Some of the recent studies predicted that Bangladesh would experience a spell of moderate to significant economic stress if the conflict persists for long. The consequences are already unfolding, and we all are aware of it. Hence, we may not dwell much on the impacts of this crisis and instead focus primarily on mitigating the economic fallout. This crisis mitigation demands a delicate policy balance between maintaining fiscal discipline and protecting vulnerable sectors and populations. between ensuring energy affordability and safeguarding long-term sustainability. These are not easy choices, and they underscores the need for informed, coordinated, and forward-looking policy responses. Lauded audience, the government of Bangladesh has undertaken several immediate measures to manage the evolving situation and crisis. These include energy conservation and rationing initiatives, efforts to secure alternative supply channels, and targeted support mechanism for migrant workers. However, it calls for more than short-term mitigation and demands a strategic shift from reactive crisis management to proactive resilience building. This crisis, whilst challenging, also presents an opportunity to reassess our structural dependencies and to lay the foundation for a more resilient and adaptive economic model. On that account, today's seminar is both timely and essential. It seeks to bring together diverse perspectives to examine the transmission channels of the crisis and to identify actionable strategies across the three critical domains that I highlighted, which will be covered by our esteemed panelists as highlighted by the master of the ceremony. I extend my sincere appreciation to all of you, the distinguished participants from government, industry, academia, and the research community. Your presence today reflects the urgency and national importance of the issue. I am sanguine that the insights generated here today will contribute towards formulating a comprehensive policy framework for the government aimed at mitigating the immediate fallout while also guiding long-term transformation. With that, thank you, ladies and gentlemen. We'll switch over to the panelists one after another. Before I hand over the floor to the first speaker, just a quick reminder to you that as per the program, it is supposed to finish at 16:30 or around that, but our chief guest has some commitments for which we would like to wrap up by 1600 hours. From that perspective, I would request the esteemed panelists to cover their portions customized in a manner that we can cover it in 10 minutes time. And we will also request during open forum session that your opinions, your discussions should focus only on proposals or recommendations in mitigation. So with that, may I now request Professor Dr. Izaz Hussain, Chairman Estex Foundation, to deliver his presentation on energy price, sourcing, and strategic reserve. Professor Izaz.
Thank you very much. Let me get straight into the presentation because since time is very short, I actually thought I will give some background to energy in Bangladesh. I'll still give it, but very, very quickly, just one or two minutes. Okay, so energy price sourcing and strategic reserve. I'll mainly talk about strategic reserve because I really like this concept, and probably that is one of the probably most important thing that can mitigate the kind of problems that we are seeing right now in Bangladesh, the long queues and things like that. Okay, so first thing is to look at the energy situation in Bangladesh. I'll not go deep into it, only to show that this is the total energy in Bangladesh in 23-24, of which only 2%, okay, 2.3% is renewables, only 2.3% renewable, and rest of it is fossil fuel. Okay, so we are very, very much dependent on fossil fuels. So renewable energy can, of course, become a solution for any country, but also mainly for Bangladesh. Our problem started in 2016-17, when that was the year when we produced the highest amount of gas in Bangladesh. Since then, our gas supply has been dwindling. And from 2018, we've been importing the red bars, LNG, to supplement the depleting reserves of Bangladesh. So peak supply in 2015-16 and then falling. And as you know, right now we have a shortage. About one third of our demand cannot be met because our total supply from LNG import and our own production is not good enough. Now, this is the data taken from the IEA for Bangladesh. The top bar, which is missing, is export. We don't export any energy from Bangladesh, but we import. Okay, so the bottom one, so it's negative minus. As you can see, how our imports has been growing. You know, in 2020-22, it was the highest, and then of course it fell a little bit because that was the COVID year. And as you can see, the huge import. So one of the main problems that Bangladesh we are facing today is that we are becoming a heavily import dependent country, dependent on fossil fuel import. Now, this is the energy production versus energy consumption. This is another graph which shows, as you can see, like the mouth is, you know, over there. If you think of it as an alligator, the mouth is opening up, which means the difference between the top is the total energy consumption and the bottom is energy production. So energy production is falling and this is yawning, building up. But very troubling is that if you look at the top curve, you will see that, you know, it's actually also, you know, gone up and then bending down, which means we are starting to consume less and less, which is obviously due to our economic activities, industrial activities getting affected. We have the BGMEA leader in this room, and he'll probably talk about that. And it really comes from the gas production. As you can see, up to a certain time, we had no problem with gas. But after a certain year, it's again opening up. Okay, we are consuming much more gas than we are producing. Okay, so that's the end of that background. So you have a good picture of what is happening. Now, what is Bangladesh's oil and LNG imports by region? This shows where, like the sourcing, we were talking about the sourcing. The crude oil source is mainly from the Middle East. We import a little bit from the rest of the world, Malaysia and things like that. The problem is our refinery, Eastern Refinery, can only refine a certain grade of crude. We call it light crude. And it really comes from Murban, which is the most expensive crude in the world. But so we know we are one of the poorest country in the world, but we have to refine one of the most expensive crudes in the world. Well, that's because this refinery was built in 1967 during the Pakistan times, and at that time we only understood gasoline, and that's the American sort of fuel that everybody used. Diesel, we import from Singapore 45%, 22% from Malaysia, 33% rest of the world. But can Singapore and Malaysia give you any diesel now? No, they've already declared force majeure. The reason is that they don't produce crude. They are a refining hub. They are a refining hub. So they also import the crude and we buy from them, but that does not mean they can give us crude in this time of sort of difficulty. So we are left with only sources which have their own crude and they do their own refining. Even India is facing trouble because India doesn't have enough of their own crude, but they've been given permission to import from Russia, so they can probably spare some. Furnace oil, again, Singapore, Malaysia, as you can see, is mainly from Singapore, but then again, they can't give you anything. LNG, mainly from Qatar, but we are getting, recently we're getting from USA, and since last 3 years, they have become an exporter of LNG. They are going to become bigger and bigger because they are sort of mining or whatever, shale gas, shale oil and shale gas. So at one time, America used to be a big importer of oil and gas, and now they are a net exporter. United States of America is the next exporter. That's why you see they're not worried about what is happening. So they have their own fuel. They do import-export, but that's only for marketing reasons from Canada and Mexico. So let me move ahead. Okay, so sourcing, the principal problem, like I said, Singapore, Malaysia, don't at times the price is not competitive. According to the PPR, we have to buy through a tendering process, which complicates the process. So we cannot really, hunt around for sources because, if you are going to do tendering, it becomes a problem. And geopolitical issues is like USA embargo on Russia. That's where the sourcing becomes a problem. Now, this is a chart which shows us how much money in dollars we spend every year to import. This is for the year 2024. This is a calculation done by me, which shows that $13.2 billion was required in 2024 to import different kinds of crude oil, LPG, LNG, coal, electricity from India. It cost us $13.2 billion. Imagine that, okay? And this is a study done by, an international group, and it came up in the Daily Star recently. It says that along with the 13.2, which is the usual price, the scarcity price right now, another $5 billion will be required more. If this continues the way the prices have gone up, we will require $5 billion more this year. So imagine 13.2, add the $4.8 billion. Okay. Now, this is a chart which I wanted to show that where we stand in Bangladesh in terms of import-export. We export about $41 billion. This was in 2024, and imported $63 billion. So we have a trade imbalance of $22 billion. So we import much, much more than we export. Of course, we all know we have a workers' remittance. In that year, it was $24 billion. This after that, it has increased, and we had a net foreign aid of 7.8. So you can do the plus and minus, and you will see that the impact of importing $20 billion. In addition to that, we require another $7 billion every year to pay capacity charges and other things in dollars to international oil companies, IPPs and all. So if we add 13 and 7, $20 billion. So every year, the minimum that we require is about $20 billion in foreign exchange just for the electricity and energy sector. So that's the impact on all. So imagine we export $40 million dollar in a RMG, of which 50% is kind of their own import. So that $20 billion is gone. So we are probably surviving from the remittances of our workers abroad. So this is what I really want to talk about. I personally, I'm a great believer in strategic reserves, okay? But there are economists often differ in that, but I will explain what I mean. So I don't want to dwell very much on strategic reserves, but everybody has a very good idea what is a strategic reserve. We even do that at home even, okay? We put things and away. If there's a problem, we know that there might be a problem, we stock some rice or whatever, we do that. So strategic reserve is essentially a nation's insurance policy, stockpiles of critical resources, okay? Supposed to give us economic stability, national security, and crisis response, okay? We can do it for food, you can do it for medicine, but mainly worldwide is done for petroleum. So this is called a strategic petroleum reserve, SPR. I'm sure you've seen that recently, how SPR is being used. IEA gave 400 million barrels of oil recently to cool oil prices. Okay, so that's the idea. So stockpiles of crude, SPR, we can have stockpile of crude oil, diesel, gasoline, jet fuel, and depending on the country, you may also want to consider LNG is becoming important, and LPG. You know recently what happened with LPG, the kind of chaos that was there in marketing. And we all said we require more stock of LPG, at least 30 days of LPG stock. If it was there, that problem wouldn't have occurred. So now India is really suffering in this crisis, not from crude oil or anything, from LPG. They never thought that they will face this problem. India is having huge problem with LPG, and we are suffering from octane and petrol, even though most of it is produced in the country. So crude oil storage is the cheapest, followed by diesel. But storing LPG and LNG requires special tanks. LNG storage can be very expensive, but we still require a little bit of LNG storage. Right now, the LNG comes, regasified, and goes through. So if there is any problem, even for 1 week, it'll be a big problem in terms of managing supply. So economic stability and market calibration. Okay, I'm sure that most of you understand this kind of thing. Price stabilization. You give from the stock just when the prices are going up. This is well understood in terms of managing supply when prices are going up. Okay, the economic shock absorption. This is to dampen price spikes, industry protection. Like they say that some industry, like I was reading somewhere that many airlines around the world may go bankrupt because their margin is so little that this price shock they will not be able to sustain. So if you want to keep that kind of industry going in your country, you have to look after that. Okay, so there are different reasons different countries keep that petroleum stocks. USA mainly for global price stability, not for their own reason, but they want because they consider themselves a world leader. China for industrial security. So they want their industries not to suffer. Japan, import reliance. That's very important. And we are that kind of a country where import reliance, so because it has almost no domestic oil, Japan requires both the government and private companies to hold stocks. 200 days, 200 days of stock Japan has. Just imagine. The problem, the Iran war is only now what? Less than 40 days. So they have so much stock, they don't have to worry. They just don't have to worry. They have kept that kind of stocks. EU nations, regional coordination, IEA, which is their organization, they have a kind of a rule that every country should hold 90 days of average import to protect the entire bloc from supply cuts. Okay, so this is the real point I want to make, and this is where a lot of people who disagree with me will say, it is the cost of insurance. It is like an insurance. So there is a cost of insurance. It is important to note that strategic reserves come with a high opportunity cost. Okay, all economists will tell me, I'm an engineer, that oh no, we can't afford it. This is too expensive and all. Buying and storing millions of barrels of oil is expensive, and that money sits idle instead of being invested in the infrastructure or education. Okay, the obvious question that arises is, can Bangladesh afford a strategic oil reserve? I say yes. Okay, why? Counter cyclical management. Okay, that's the reason why. You buy low, you sell high. And I've been telling this in the Ukraine war. Okay, price increase, and in normal year you will see it follows a cyclical pattern. It goes down, it comes up. So even if there is no problem, never any problem of any sort, this cyclical year is always there for various reasons. This can't be stopped anybody. So even I've been following oil prices for the last 2-3 years. It has gone down to $65 per barrel, right? And it has also gone up to $85 per barrel. So there is a $20 margin. Okay. So what happens is that what you do is that you buy this oil, you fill up this whole your storage when the price is low. Okay. And you dump it when the price is high. So even if there's no problem, you can use this as to control price volatility. To keep the market stable, long-term governments manage reserves in a counter-cyclical way. When prices are too high, they release oil to lower the price. When price is high or is about to crash, they buy. So you fill your reserve, your tanks, when the price is low. Okay, and you sit there. And when the price is high, you dump it. So you have managed to get some profit out of it. Okay, so this is why I believe that even in a developing country, we can afford to do that, because oil price volatility is a kind of given thing. Okay, this is a Bangladesh case where Eastern Refinery can run 100% capacity regardless of shipping delays. And now we are talking about a second refinery which is double the size, 35,000 crore taka, aims triple the capacity. Think about it, if there is a supply disruption, what happens? Okay, so it will be a big year. So arbitrage savings. Bangladesh can buy crude when prices are low, example $70 per barrel, and store it, avoiding the panic buys currently happening at $110 per barrel. Okay, in a single 30-day release cycle, this could save $40 million plus every time you do this in foreign exchange. So reduce, plus if you store this when prices are going up, instead of buying refined products like diesel and gasoline, you can use your crude to refine. Now, this is just the oil reserves of different countries. I've given two tables because data is never reliable anywhere. Okay, Japan, both the figures are the same, but you see in China it says 200 days, and I think over there it says 80 days. Okay, so which one is correct? I don't know. India 74. India doesn't have 74 days. For sure I know that. But in that table it says India 42 to 56 days. But at least 42 is there. So India is not really very much affected right now, but they are having a problem, like I said, with LPG. They have 340 million households which require LPG. Okay, because they're mainly they don't have pipe gas, very little. So and they have mainly shifted away from biomass stoves and things like that. So LPG is extremely important. So they need to do some planning in this regard. So there are a lot of countries which have reserves. Okay, now I don't want to go through this because I've been told to cut short, so I'll skip this. And really, I don't have much to say except that the present crisis that we're facing could very well have been managed if we had a sort of a strategic reserve. And the other things that we need to do are long term. And I've talked about, we all know that we need more gas exploration. We need to look at more at renewable. We need to do energy efficiency, energy conservation, and energy efficiency, and really plan the whole thing. Which fuels will use in what applications, and how to manage this, how to balance. For example, let me say electric vehicle. China is not being affected this time that much. They have 30% of their cars are electric vehicle. So imagine the kind of security they're getting. The last point I want to make is about renewable energy. Pakistan has become a worldwide success right now. They have gone from 3% a few years back, 3% total renewable energy solar, to 35% in 2 to 3 years. It's a kind of almost a magic how that happened. And then there's a lot of discussion, and it was really private driven. A lot of people, rural area and in homes, they did it. So I said somewhere that the Pakistani people are rich. The government is poor. Okay. Pakistani people, their household income is extremely high compared to Bangladesh and India. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Dr. Ijaz. I think he has given his logics, rationalized in favor of why we need strategic reserve, citing examples of some of the neighboring countries, and particularly emphasize that how LPG reserve is becoming essential to maintain our household core, and also how some of the countries have used alternative energy sources to reduce the burden on energy and thereby facilitating industrial growth. So thank you very much, Dr. Ijaz. Now it's turn that we turn on to Mr. Inamul Haq Khan, the Senior Vice President of BGMEA, who will be talking about trade and market diversification. Mr. Khan.
Respected Chair, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum and good afternoon. Thank you, Professor Ijaz, for enlightening us about the Bangladesh energy situation, which though looked very frustrating, but we need to come up with solution. After weeks of uncertainty, today we are reminded that even in the darkest times, diplomacy can reopen the path of peace and stability. It is both an honor and privilege to address this distinguished forum on a topic of critical importance to Bangladesh. We stand at a pivotal moment in history, one where uncertainty has defined our recent past. The pace and nature of global developments have tested our resilience. Yet today, there is renewed sense of caution optimism. The recent ceasefire between the United States and Iran, after weeks of escalating tensions, is indeed a welcome development for the world. These pauses in conflict, facilitated through international diplomacy, has already brought some stability to the global energy market and raised hopes for longer-term peace. However, while the guns may have temporarily fallen silent, the economic shocks triggered by the conflict are still unfolding. Therefore, our focus today remains highly relevant. Today, I will speak on trade and market diversification, examining the challenges before us and exploring how we can navigate this extraordinary period. From crisis to caution, a changing reality. Let me begin with the stark reality. The recent conflict in the Middle East was not merely a geopolitical issue. It evolved into a full-scale energy crisis with global economic consequences. The ceasefire has eased tension and may stabilize the key routes like the Strait of Hormuz. However, recent volatility highlights global fragility and supply disruptions could last months, if not years. For Bangladesh, this crisis has struck at the very core of our economy. Why? We are heavily dependent on imported fuel and energy. Our industries, especially the RMG sector, are energy intensive. Global energy markets remain vulnerable to sudden disruptions. Even a temporary disruption caused increased production cost, surge in transportation expenses, rising inflation, declining competitiveness. Transmission of the shock. The crisis spread rapidly through multiple channels. Disruption in key routes such as the Strait of Hormuz and the Red Sea Suez Canal corridor. Even the Bab el Mandeb, the short space, 29-kilometer space, was also a big risk of closure, because if Strait of Hormuz closes and then Bab el Mandeb closes, the world may see. I mean, the conflict is closed now. I mean, for the time being, for some time, but it may come again. So we must remember the dangers. Freight costs rising by 30 to 40%, volatility in fuel supply affecting power generation, industries, and transport. Even with the ceasefire in place, these effects do not disappear overnight. What we experienced was not a single crisis, but a compounded energy trade logistical shock. The prices of petroleum-related products used in the RMG sector have already increased by around 30%, and we may face supply shortages in the coming days. As you all know, a large portion of fabrics and many accessories used in the RMG industry are derived from petroleum. Bangladesh, strong yet structurally vulnerable. Bangladesh has made remarkable progress. Exports reached 48.28 billion US dollar. RMG contributed over 81% of the total exports, but this success also reveals vulnerability. Heavy dependence on EU and USA markets is around 75 to 80% of total export. Dependence on imported energy and raw materials. Recent disruptions have already slowed export momentum. RMG export growth slowed to around 5.51% in fiscal year 2025-26, and in March, it declined by a staggering 19.35%. Very alarming. The decline of export is actually very alarming, especially we in the RMG sector. We are quite nervous what is happening. When we see our competitors like Vietnam and Cambodia making very good progress, and we are actually declining, this is a matter of serious concern. In value, the export, it came down to US dollar 28.57 billion during July to March fiscal year 25-26 from US dollar 30.25 billion from last fiscal year. The real risk chain still exists. Even after the ceasefire, the fundamental chain remains. Energy crisis results higher production cost. Higher cost results in reduced competitiveness. Reduced competitiveness results lower export demand. Although tensions have eased, global markets remain cautious and demand recovery may take time. Diversification. now more urgent than ever. If there is one lesson from this crisis, and even from the ceasefire, it is this: we cannot rely on stability, we must prepare for instability. Diversification is no longer a long-term ambition, it is an immediate necessity. Market diversification. We must expand beyond traditional markets. The following regions should be actively targeted to enhance export diversification. Asia. In Asia, we have Japan, China, and India to explore. Middle East, strong purchasing power despite associated risks. Africa, emerging and largely untapped market. Latin America, where demand is increasing. Product diversification. We must move beyond basic garments towards man-made fiber apparel, technical textiles, sustainable and high-value products. This ensures better margins and resilience. Supply chain and energy security. The recent crisis and even the ceasefire has reinforced one truth: energy security is economic security. We must diversify sourcing, strengthen backward linkage industries, build strategic energy reserves. Trade policy. Preparing for a new era. With LDC graduation approaching, we must accelerate free trade agreements, FTAs, preferential trade agreements, PTAs, strategic global partnership. Logistics, a strategic priority. Even brief disruptions showed that logistics is now a battleground. We must improve port efficiency. Our Chittagong port, which carries 94 to 95% of national import and export, and Mongla is the remaining 5 to 6%. It is highly inefficient. At this particular point of time, Chittagong port is showing a good performance, which is good. But in general, the Chittagong port's position amongst the world different ports is very, very low. And we need to improve our port, which will help us in both our efficiency. Chittagong port is the lifeline of our country. So Chittagong port, we need to improve efficiency in Chittagong port. Develop alternative trade routes. Reduce dependency on conflict-prone corridors like Hormuz that we have already proved. Private sector leadership. The private sector must lead by investing in innovation. With the modern technology, AIs and everything available, we need to invest highly on these advanced apps and advanced technologies available. So strengthening our compliance. In compliance, Bangladesh has made a remarkable progress. Compliance, sustainability, circularity, all these things, Bangladesh has made very good progress. So we need to keep the focus on this compliance issue. Adopting the digital supply chains, where we are making progress but very slow. Digital supply chains, we need to do it very fast to compete with our competitors. And like right at this point of time, India is our competitor. It's very they have already taken over a lot of our orders. Vietnam is hurting us. Cambodia is hurting us. So this supply chain digital adaptation of digital supply chain is very, very important to make our exports more efficient and effective. We need to build global brands. We have some local brands in Bangladesh, Yellow and all these brands, but that is still a very, very local brand. To make real progress in the international business, especially in the RMG going forward, we need to have global brands to make stability, to bring stability to our export market. So we have a core message. At its core, diversification is about risk management. Because in today's world, geopolitics shapes economics, and uncertainty is the new normal. Ladies and gentlemen, Bangladesh stands at a critical crossroads. A growing economy, a rising global manufacturing hub, yet increasingly exposed to external shocks. The recent ceasefire offers hope, but also a reminder. Peace may return, but uncertainty never fully disappears. The lesson is clear. Dependence creates vulnerability. Diversification builds resilience. Let me conclude with this thought. In a world where conflict can disrupt markets overnight, those who prepare during the peace will lead in times of uncertainty. Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you, Mr. Inamul Haq Khan. I think he has rightly shared his thoughts about the market diversifications, the possible or potential destinations. He also talked about trade diversification. But since in this platform we have entrepreneurs from diverse fields in the open sessions, I would expect that some of you will come up to share your experience, that with real-time experience, or that where we can really focus on. He was also highlighted the importance of enhancing our efficiency in port operation and management. And lastly, he touched upon the importance of transforming into digital supply chain. So thank you, Dr. Nam. Now it's time for our last speaker, Dr. Mahfuz Kabir, the research director of BIS, who will deliver his presentation on inflation, macroeconomic adjustment, and recovery. Dr. Kabir, the floor is yours.
Thank you, respected Director General of BISS and respected chief guest, fellow panelists, ladies and gentlemen. So I'll be briefly summarizing the whole economic gamut of as a fallout of the Iran war, especially it's the Middle East war, and in fact what would Bangladesh do as a policy recommendations. So if we briefly see the overall impact of the Iran war, so it's mainly the energy crisis that we see, power and energy. So, and in fact, because of the blockade in the checkpoint at the Strait of Hormuz, so it blocked around 16 million barrels of oil per day, and it's a 15% of the global supply and 20% of the LNG shipments. So it's basically the situation. And then Qatar's LNG production, so if we see it has decreased by 17%. So it's a huge decrease. And since Bangladesh import of LNG, so and 70% is coming from Qatar, and it's now we have shifted our origin, the sourcing to Australia. So and that's a new direction. So and if we see the other things, if just because of the energy crisis, we see the global inflation has a big risk of becoming 7.7%. So it's a huge, and there are in fact regional distribution of the inflation. So across Europe and the Americas, and also in Asian developed countries, and also our developing world. So, and if this peace deal, the process has already started, and the dialogue will in fact start in Islamabad on the day after tomorrow. So we hope that it will be in a peaceful kind of solution. But still, they have their fingers on the trigger. So as Iran has already mentioned, and there is in heightened tension regarding this and the peace talk. So, but still, we feel that there would be a peaceful solution. But still, there's a tension, and in fact, it would cut, and if there is a prolonged war, it doesn't happen. So there will be a prolonged war, and a global GDP would cut by 1.4%. So that's a big number. So and Eurozone, and especially that would be in a big trouble. And then our biggest destination of our exports, especially RNGs, is the European zone. So that will suffer a lot. So and inflation is a common, and is a common effect across the world. So that's a big problem, and especially the agricultural production that will face a serious problem because of the crisis in the supply of fertilizers. So, and much of our fertilizer is coming from the the Middle East, and it's not only for us. Many countries of Asia and the food, especially food producing countries, food exporting countries, so they're dependent on fertilizer from the Middle East. So that's a big problem. And if we see the oil price, so we are expecting a sharp decline. But you see, from 111 to $150 per barrel. In fact, just yesterday, so just right after the announcement of the initiation of the peace talks, so it dropped to 97, around 94 to 95 to $96 per barrel. So, but it just stuck. So I've seen the movement of the oil price, the crude oil price. So, but still, it's a good sign, and if it in fact decreases, even not significantly, but still it's a kind of positive sign. But the problem is that we have already, in fact, have some kind of deal with some of the countries, including Singapore. So from Singapore, we have in fact bought the oil, more than $200 per barrel. So it's already done, And in fact, it's an in fact positive approach by the government, because we don't in fact want to see any kind of panic, so or any kind of problem artificially created by the political interference. So that's the thing that we want. We want stability, and because of the positive approach from the government to source the LNG and also the oil, so we could in fact manage reasonably that kind of panic. So, but if we see the, in fact, the long queue in the petrol pump, so it's basically driven by the, in fact, by the bikes, especially. So nowadays the situation have been, in fact, reasonably managed. So that's a good sign. But still, since we have sourced the, in fact, energy with a high price, so that's a big problem. That in fact we have to be, in fact, adjusting the price, and already mentioned by the energy minister. So he has said that, I mean, there is forthcoming. So it will trigger on inflation, and especially the food price would go up. So, and the bunker fuel cost, it has already significantly increased. And if we see the shipping cost, it has increased significantly. You can see a kind of logarithmic shape of the, in fact, the increase of the index and the price. So, and World Bank, IMF, in fact, WTO, many of the organizations, OECD, so they have said that there will be, in fact, impact in the two major fronts. One is the global cut of GDP growth. So that's and they have some varied kind of, in fact, projections. So it would be something like, I mean, less than 2%. So because of the, in fact, Iran war. So supply chain disruptions and economic instability across the world, regional economic collapse, especially in Asia and the developing Asia. And there would be other things like, I mean, if we see so nowadays we are telling that in fact, the next global economy is in Asia. So, and in Japan, China, and South Korea, there are many others, I mean, who are emerging. So, and Singapore also. So we can see, I mean, that the regional growth would decline significantly, and inflation would increase by 3.2 percentage points. So it's a big number. So, and there will be energy and supply chain disruption. So now we see it's a globalized village, and a term which is called the production fragmentation and intra-industry trade. So one part of in fact, the finished product, so it's produced by one country, and it's regarded as the intermediate good or raw material by their country or other production plant. So it's the interdependence that we see. So there is a huge supply chain disruption. It's not only the raw material or only in the final goods. So it's an in between. So the huge disruption has taken place. So and it would continue. So, and that would create a kind of mutual kind of slowdown that we would see. And JP Morgan has also, in fact, projected that the global GDP is expected to slow to 2.9%. Initially, it was 3.5%, around 3.5%. So it would decline, and Europe would also decelerate. So that's a big problem because of the energy cost. And in fact, so urea and sulfur, so they, in fact, the whole, in fact, Middle East, they produce and export 30 to 40, 50%. And it has disrupted. And global aluminum supply, so it had disrupted by 9%. So that's an interesting thing. And another interesting thing, so 4,000 daily flight cancellations is taking place. It's a big number. So now the Middle East has become a kind of air hub. So airlines are there, most are going. 10, 15 years ago, we have seen that, in fact, Europe was basically the hub. Nowadays, I mean, we see the Middle East has become the hub. So, and there are a lot of airlines, so they're coming. So, and there is a projection of WTO. So they have projected that Iran's GDP is projected to fall by 10+%. So that's a thing. And in fact, it's something like, I mean, the $3.5 trillion would vanish. So it's the projection by the WTO. So just because of in fact, this war. And what about Bangladesh? Over 400 flights to the Middle East were cancelled. So, and it's not only the cancellation, but you see the whole airlines business. So it's a highly, in fact, costly investment. So every day that they cancel in fact, flights, so you incur loss. And there's a huge funding and financing by the banks, insurance. So there are a lot of, in fact, financial institutions are involved. So because of the cancellation of, it's also risks the increase of the joblessness. That's also an important, in fact, outcome. Now, if we see the inflation in Bangladesh, so now we have seen that in March, so inflation has decreased a little bit, even though it doesn't match with the expectation of the reflection of the reality by the BBS, but still it's an official figure. So then we can see, but the thing is there is a huge caveat that because of the price adjustment of the, in fact, oil, gas, and also the electricity, so there will be a kind of higher inflation in the coming days, and it's mentioned by the finance minister, the power energy minister, and also the minister of local government. So they all have said that, and we also have the expectation that if the, in fact, price adjustment takes place, so there will be an increase in inflation. So and there's an interesting thing. So it's from the, so just if we consider the energy price adjustment, so there will be a pressure. And because of the increase of the price of the imported goods, the raw material, the final good, food prices, the food that we are importing, so all these prices will increase and also started increasing. So and the raw material, so just giving you some examples, the chemicals price increased by 183%. The polyester filament yarn 79%, the plastic resin 67%. Just example of some of the products that we are using in our, in fact, manufacturing industry. So all increased by a lot. So and it's creating a lot of pressure on the price of costing of the production of our local industries. Okay, now if you see the overseas employment, so it's significantly reduced. In the last 3 months. So if you compare the number of January 2026, 94,000 overall, and it has declined to 73,776 in March. So, and if we see the, in fact, the number in the Middle Eastern countries, especially in Saudi Arabia, so from 64,000, it has become 24,000 only. So just about 1/3. So it's a big decline, and Saudi Arabia is the biggest destination of our manpower export. So and we have seen declines, sharp decline, and remittance inflow. So there are in fact different explanations that, I mean, that because of their panic, so they have sent the money, and also there is an Eid. So and we have seen a big record. It's record highest in the history of Bangladesh. So 3.755 billion of remittance that we have received. But what about the next month, like in April or May? So what would happen? Many of the companies, they may not be able to pay their wages and salary. So that's a big reality that we need to, in fact, keep in our mind. So we have to be prepared because of, and there is also an opportunity because they will require. So already peace talk has been started. So if it becomes successful, then in fact we'll see some demand of our labor. So we have to be prepared on that. But still, for now, we have to, in fact, especially emphasis on give our concentration towards, I mean, the retaining the, in fact, the workers in the Middle East. So that should be the highest priority. And GDP, so there are some, in fact, numbers like, I mean, in the next 2 years, so GDP would be declined, the growth would be declined by 3.03, in fact, percentage point in 2026 and 2027, just because of this disturbance. So, and there is another number, I mean, if just $10, if the, in fact, cost increases by $10, so it creates a 40% increase of the total cost across the economy. So that's a big number as well. So, and if we see the whole financial system, the whole financial system includes the banks. So the banks are investing on the manufacturing, in agriculture, the services, exports, imports, and the insurance companies, the general insurance, life insurance, so all are involved in the whole process of the production and export. So all would be, in fact, in disturbance. And nowadays we are struggling in the non-performing loans. So it will also be a big pressure because nowadays we are seeing some progress. But the thing is that, I mean, if the industries fail or if there is closures of the factories, then, I mean, they will not be able to, in fact, repay their loans. So that would create a big pressure on banking system, and our struggle to revive the banking system and the financial architecture. So, and there will be, and we are expecting that after the election, so there will be huge flow of the FDI. But now, in fact, so they are not, in fact, the global multinationals, they are not thinking of relocating their businesses in Bangladesh just because of this whole turmoil in the Middle East. And they are, in fact, suffering. But still, I mean, they are just thinking and waiting for the stability. So that's the reality. So, and we have to wait for some time as well. Okay. And just, I mean, briefly touching the export earning and foreign exchange reserve. So there's already a big caveat. So regarding the, in fact, the export and also the foreign exchange reserve. So, and because of the, in fact, increased import cost and decreased export earning. So there, in fact, in the next, in fact, few months, we'll see a big pressure on the foreign exchange reserve. So that for that, we'll have to get the preparations. And also the export earning, we are seeing in fact, negative trend of the export earning over the last, I think, 8 months since, in fact, since August. So in July, just in July, and we have seen some positive trend. So, but from in the last 8 months, we are just, in fact, seeing the negative. And in the last month, in May, in March, so we have seen the more than 80% of the negative growth of the exports. So that's a big, in fact, caution for us. So for our, in fact, forest reserve. So probably we'll have to introduce or strengthen the regulatory duty on our imports, especially some of the products that we are, in fact, producing locally. So we have to, in fact, think inwards or look inwards. So that's what we need to see and do, and in order to preserve our foreign exchange reserve. So there is risk of unemployment as well. So that's a big, in fact, thing, because there are, in fact, pressures in the two fronts. Like, I mean, the local from the local industries, manufacturing, and agriculture and services. So there is a risk of new unemployment, and also if there is no, in fact, end of the or if the work prolongs, then there will be a problem of the, in fact, people. I mean, the returning of the, in fact, overseas employment. So that is also a problem, industrial job loss, because of the, in fact, if they want to remain competitive to our, in fact, competitors, especially in Vietnam, China, India, Sri Lanka, all are, in fact, so if they become competitive, in fact, compared to Bangladesh, then definitely there is a risk of new unemployment in our manufacturing exports. So that's a big problem from the domestic front and also from the, in fact, returning, in fact, workers. And impact on poverty. So in fact, because of the, in fact, inflation. So inflation is the biggest curse on the poor. Is said by, it's long back said by John Maynard Keynes. So now we see, I mean, that if inflation is inevitable. So and it's going to create a new pressure on the poor people. So that's we're going to become a big, in fact, policy concern for Bangladesh government, the new government. So there should be a special focus on reducing the pain on the on poor people. So I'm just at the end of my presentation, so just way forward. So energy subsidy, so it has to continue, even though we have a pressure from the IMF on, in fact, lifting, in fact, subsidy from the, in fact, power and energy. So we have to continue reforming in our sectors, but we see that the government's priority should be on stabilizing the macroeconomy. So there should not be, I mean, the increased pressure on in fact, inflation. So we have to, in fact, design that our macroeconomic policy in that direction. And there should be a kind of strong policy, in fact, reorientation in the central bank. We have to, in fact, make the monetary policy flexible. So, and we need to effectively consider reducing the policy rates, lending rate. So that's imperative. Even though the new governor is from the business community, but he was not able to reduce the interest rate. So that's a thing. But now it is a time to consider rethink in order to, in fact, save our, in fact, economy, especially the manufacturing sector. So and definitely, so we have to have the food support program for and especially for the low income people, the households. And now we have the concern that I mean, that there will be a reverse migration from the, especially from Dhaka city. So the people won't be able to, in fact, sustain in the city because of the high cost. So we have to think of, in fact, giving the food support, and we have to continue the ongoing the new, in fact, social protection programs like the family card. The honorable chief guest, he is in fact thinking and working on that. So family card and also the farmer card. So and also the in fact canal excavation, de-excavation program. So these should continue. But beside that, I mean, we have to have the special emphasis on the food support program and domestic manufacturing export. So export has seen the in fact the negative growth, and for the last 8 months, and in the last month we have seen more than 18% of the negative growth. So we have to save our in fact export sector, especially the RMG. So with the support, special support, and we don't want that. I mean, there's a full transfer. I mean, without any repayment, but we need to see that. I mean, our monetary policy is flexible with the lower interest rate, and maybe I mean the soft, in fact, short-term fund from the special fund from the central bank. So that's an important, and in fact, energy cooperation with the neighboring countries is also a very important thing that we need to consider, because we have seen a friend in need is a friend indeed. So just in fact, right after the wars, we have seen that the pipeline is working. So we have to have more, in fact, grid connectivity and other areas of cooperation. And my final point is that we have, so this is an opportunity as well, as I already mentioned. So, and since the peace talk will start day after tomorrow, so with the, in fact, positive note in mind, so there's an opportunity that our, in fact, demand for our workers will increase in the Middle East for reconstruction, for development. So we have to have a preparation, and there should be a joint committee by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Ministry of Expert Welfare and Overseas Employment. So there should be a high-level task force to, in fact, start communication with at the diplomatic channel and also with the recruiting agency, so that I mean that we can get the, in fact, priority over the other countries for reconstruction and development. And with that, I would like to thank you, everyone. I mean, for listening to me. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Kobir. I think he has touched upon the importance of looking at energy subsidiaries, energy hedging strategy he has talked about. He also said that the government should provide support to the domestic manufacturing in terms of priority supply of gas, electricity, loan to the entrepreneurs. But it is easy to say, but difficult to really devise the action plan when there are contradicting or conflicting priority requirements. So I would also urge upon the House to tell some more details how government can really balance these conflicting requirements. So, ladies and gentlemen, we are very pleased to have amongst us our today's chief guest, Dr. Rashid Al Mahmoud Titumir, Honorable Advisor to the Honorable Prime Minister for Ministry of Finance and Ministry of Planning, Government of the People's Republic of Bangladesh. Sir, glad to have you here, and thank you very much that amidst your so much of busy schedule and events, you have made time to be with us. Sir, we had the 3 speakers delivered. Now we will be moving on to the open discussion session to share or hear from the House. So, ladies and gentlemen, the floor is open to you. May I humbly remind that you should share your thoughts on the probable recommendations on the 3 primary sectors that we have identified: the energy, the trade diversification, market diversification, and overall the macroeconomy, with some highlights on the exploring new labor markets. I would also humbly request you to first give your identity and be precise to the point. The floor is open. Mr. Mahbub.
Thank you for giving me the floor. Thank you also, Honorable Advisor, for coming here and in spite of your busy schedule. I will just focus on the solution part, because a lot of the short-term solutions have already been given by the speakers. So being an ambassador, I was in China and Beijing. So I saw that they have long-term hedging. This was Dr. Izaz also, told us security reserve. I am very much agreeable to his proposition. So it should be implemented. Like China has a stock and reserves of strategic reserve of petrols, and the facts and figures have already been given. So I recently saw in the papers that the government is embarking on this policy. So we should have an implementation of this policy. And of course, they have reduced the duty structure of the EV, electronic vehicles, right? So previously it was on the higher side. So my humble proposal is that it should be implemented at once and in the financial budget. This EV, which will reduce our dependence on fossil fuels. And of course, Dr. Ezaz was also speaking about the Pakistan's remarkable, progress in solar panels. He was telling that about 35, but I heard that the figures may be around 30 or something like that. But anyway, they are increasing their reliance on solar panels. And these are mostly sourced. I saw in the CNN or Al Jazeera that it was sourced from Chinese. Also, they are one of the largest producers of these solar powers and solar panels. So also my humble suggestion is that we could have more linkages and interlinkages. So in the long term, we could reduce our dependence on fossil fuels. And this will be a long-term strategy. Next is having done my stint in Beijing, I saw that how they had been able to reduce the wastages and to reduce, reuse, and recycle, these 3 R's. From waste to energy, they are converting. So this is a very promising area. In fact, during my tenure, there were some agreements, but it could not progress much. I don't know what happened really, but this could be a very much potential sector in the future. And regarding Mr. Mahfouz Kabir's observation that the inflation has eased, but there is no sense of complacency, because in another anecdote I saw that it was decreasing at a decreasing rate, because as compared to previous months. So we have to be concerned that we have to contain the inflation through various monetary and policy issues. And another, but lastly, not the least, I was really pretty concerned about this EFL, that Eastern Refinery Limited, that it's also can only take a certain amount of fuels. So we should have immediately a diversification of this in a source of fuel. In the 60s it was done, but this also would raise our leverage. And another thing as that I want to ask Mr. Ezaz, that he was telling that we import around LNG of 17% from US. So most probably we import from Accelerate, from the spot market. Is there any possibility that we could have a bilateral deal, and under bilateral purchase agreement we could buy from them at a much reduced price? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mahbub. May I now request Mr. M.S. Siddiqui?
Okay, thanks to Dr. Mahfouz Kabir for giving the full details of the state of economy and possible impact of the war and disruption of the supply of this fuel. And our friend Mr. Inam has suggested that the alternate business should be diversified in order to face this sorts of problem. And I want to draw the attention to the one important point of Professor Ezaz, that there should be a buffer stock in all, especially in the private sector or individual level. It is very successful in Japan, as he says. Actually, we should follow that, because we cannot maintain, government cannot maintain the stock for more than 40 days or 45 days. Our experience says. And even to implement this program, we should allow the private sector to import energy in their own account. And there is a challenge, because energy is subsidized in our country. So if somebody government import, then it is easy to give subsidy. But when private sector will import, then subsidy is it will conflict with the import policy. Even then, subsidy we are not giving. So IMF also suggesting to reduce the subsidy. That is, we should go for a market system for the import and marketing. Even that there should be a way out, and private sector should be allowed to, or at least the consumer should be allowed a few years back, the airlines is not feasible in our country. The reason is that they say government is supplying them the fuel at a very high price, is comparing the other market. So they demanded to allow them to import their fuel in their own account. So I think government can consider allowing the import and also stock, because according to Bangladesh law, nobody can keep a stock more than 90 days. It is law in our country. So let us think over on this basic issue to resolve this problem, because the problem will come time and again. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Before I go to the back, if someone from the front rows, okay, Ambassador Masood.
Thank you very much. Respected advisor and everyone. I will actually touch another point because some things have been already told by Ambassador Mahmoud and my friend Shahjahan Siddiqui. It is the labor market diversification. I think we shouldn't only always depend on Middle East. I've said both in Middle East and West Asia plus Africa. In Africa, we have a lot of opportunity. So at some private initiative, already we are supplying labor there. But when I presented my credential to a few of the presidents as an ambassador to African countries, they also requested us that your labor force is a disciplined labor force, and they're very much interested to recruit labor force from Bangladesh. So I can tell that even Mali, a country like Mali, it's very big in size, but very few in population. So they also told that if your labor come, we will welcome them. Uganda already are taking labor from Bangladesh, and then there are some other neighboring countries there. So Africa can be a substitute slowly, and then it can be expanded. Secondly, another thing is, we mentioned about Pakistan becoming very much dependent on renewable energy, and they are a success story. But actually, we also reported long time back when I was posted in China that China is, at that time, I'm talking about almost 30 years ago, that China was already, eager to develop this, renewable energy sector with Bangladesh. So since we have a very good relation between the new government as well as with the government in China, they should also consider availing this opportunity to develop the renewable energy sector with the help of a big, economy like China. So these are the 2 points I just wanted to raise.
Thank you, Ambassador Masood. May I now request Mr. Majidul Haq?
Thank you for giving me a scope to talk. I have a question to Dr. Ezaz sir. What is the government strategy of generating electricity from renewable energy? Already Pakistan did well, Sri Lanka did well, and China also. We have to focus on now on renewable energy. The previous government has a plan, 500 megawatt solar power program, 2012 to 2016, and another program, power system master plan. But 2 projects did not see the light still. There runs a project, Bay of Bengal Industrial Growth Belt in Matarbari, which will be considered at fuel hub completely. But this project now faces geopolitical issues because of this project invested by Japan. So China is dissatisfaction over the project. Anyway, what is the current situation, or what is the government plan of renewable energy sector and gas exploration? Another important issue, migrant issue. Migrant issue. There is a trend of sending migrant workers Middle East, but there is a scope after Middle East war. There will be reconstruct the Middle East countries will be reconstructed after the war. So the migrant workers must be skilled to avail the opportunity after the war. What is the government strategy? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Majid. Dr. Ijaz, if you want to. He highlighted two things. One is what is the current government initiatives about renewable energy, and secondly, are we thinking about exploring the labor market, which is
Right.
coming out of the reconstruction need of the Middle East?
Middle East, after war.
I think that would, Dr. Mahfouz would take that. Anyway, with gas, what is happening is that we have two programs. One is called the 50 well, the other is the 100 well program. The thing is that both these programs were started during the Awami League time. It continued during the interim government and is now continuing, okay? And every government says that we are giving a lot of emphasis in this and all, but I mean, we're not seeing much results from it. Well, there are some sort of disturbing facts that of the 5 or 6 real exploratory wells that were drilled, they didn't find anything. Okay, so that's really worrying. But these 50 wells are not all exploratory wells. They are workover. Many of them are workover wells, and a lot of them are appraisal wells, step out wells, proper exploratory wells, which is supposed to be what we are looking for, has been very few. But in this now new 100 well program, there are quite a few of them, and that will tell us really whether we are successful in finding a. But the government is, I think, right about ready to open up the both the onshore and offshore for drilling. The offshore is very, very important. Deep offshore, I mean, is very important because we've tendered twice and it failed. And this time, hopefully, they've got all the clauses right so that the people who bid are convinced. With renewable energy, the government declared a 300 megawatt rooftop program, and but we haven't seen even 1 megawatt of that by December, and now they're gone. So I don't know, the new government hasn't announced yet anything, and there are a lot of activities going on. But one of the big problems with that, you do require a lot of investment to even if you do renewable energy. It's not just saying renewable energy, okay? So I mean, you need, yeah. So who's going to give this money is the question. In Pakistan, what happened was the most of it was driven by is a private initiative. So people even in rural areas, they went out and built. One of the reasons is that they don't have electricity. I mean, enough electricity. Huge load shedding, hours and hours of load shedding. So that forced people to do it and take the matter into hand. They've even actually installed, a lot of people have installed batteries even. Now, if you live in a rural area and you have a lot of land, you can do this. But I don't think that Bangladesh, the situation is same. Also in the urban areas, like apparently in Lahore, is all over. You can see the solar panels. But you see, we live in flats in Dhaka city. So, who owns the roof and things like that? Those are questions are there. But I don't know, there are people in renewable energy. We're doing hundreds of seminars on renewable energy. Why it's not happening in Bangladesh? I don't think anybody has come up with a comprehensive answer to our renewable energy problem. It's just not happening. Of course, the government was, they had taxes, high taxes and a lot of things which really need to be removed, and they have to be zero. I mean, this shock right now, if this doesn't teach Bangladesh that we need a lot of renewable energy, then I don't think it'll ever happen. So this is the right time to move ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Ejaz. I think we have representatives from Ministry of Expatriate and Labor. They have taken note of it. Good suggestion, Mr. Majid. That yeah, okay. Now may I request General Jivan Kanai Das, and for others, please.
Thank you, Chair.
We have number of desirous persons, so we limit our timing.
I'm the former Director General. Well, if I am allowed to say that Mr. Enamul Haq Khan has said, uncertainties is the new normal. I cannot agree more with it. And then I can imagine that that's more all-embracing. We have seen Ukraine war, then we had Israel and Hamas war, and the Middle East one. I don't know how much is the time the next conflict is going to come. So we should not be thinking about the problem we are now facing. So government is taking adequate steps to address many of those, and the speakers have also come out with suggestions. But I want that people should look a little forward. One, on the energy issue, Dr. Izzaz has just said, we should intensify our domestic exploration process and take all necessary steps. If there is gas in Vola, it should be connected to the national grid and things like that. But regarding renewable energy, I think we have made a huge investment in Rupur. So we should look into that and complete the project as soon as possible so that we get 2,500 watts of electricity into the grid. And that's the huge investment that we have made. Now, another issue that I would like to talk about is the food. You see, along with energy, fertilizer supply is also affected. So if we don't get enough fertilizer from abroad, we don't produce enough. So our food supply is going to be affected badly. So like our strategic petroleum reserve, we should also plan to increase our food reserve and also increase the food production. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. May I request Mr. Ghazi AKM Fazlul Haq?
Thank you, sir. Already we have pointed out so many ways for overcoming these present crisis. For like other speakers, we also I also like to put emphasis on solar panel establishment, and also for quick finalization of tendering process of our domestic oil blocks and gas blocks. We found that always these blocks are not explored wellly. So we should be careful and be eager for exploration of our own energy. That's okay, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Sayeda Sultana Razia.
আসসালামু আলাইকুম। আমি বুয়েটের প্রফেসর, সেভাবে কথা বলছি, যদিও আমি এনার্জি রেগুলেটরি কমিশনের মেম্বার, বাট আই এম নট গোয়িং টু টক অন বিহাফ অফ এনার্জি রেগুলেটরি কমিশন। আর যেহেতু আজকে আমাদের অনারেবল অ্যাডভাইজার আছেন, ইট উড বি এ গুড অপরচুনিটি ফর মি টু সে ফিউ ওয়ার্ডস যেটা হি কুড বি এবল টু শেয়ার উইথ in his forum, and I hope it will be, useful, inshallah. So আজকে কথাগুলি চলে এসছে। প্রথমে আমি একটা জিনিস বলবো যে ক্রাইসিস ব্রিংস অপরচুনিটি। আমি দেখেছি যে যেসব কাজ নর্মাল টাইমে হয় না, অনেক ক্রাইসিসের সময় আমরা ওইসব কাজ অনেক ইজিলি করার জন্য রেডি থাকি। তো এই যে স্ট্র্যাটেজিক রিজার্ভের কথা বলা হয়েছে, নর্মাল টাইমে ইট কুড বি ডিফিকাল্ট, কিন্তু এখন আমার কাছে মনে হচ্ছে মেবি উই ক্যান গো ফরওয়ার্ড, এবং ইট ইজ পসিবল যে এই জিনিসগুলি মানে আদায় হবে, কাজ করা হবে। আরেকটা জিনিসের দিকে আমি তাকাতে বলবো, সেটা হচ্ছে যে আমরা যখন অ্যানুয়াল বাজেট দেখি, আমরা যদি গত গভর্নমেন্টের বা তার আগের গভর্নমেন্টের বাজেট দেখি, আমরা দেখব যে পাওয়ার জেনারেশন, পাওয়ার ডিভিশনের যে পরিমাণ বাজেট আছে এনার্জি সেক্টরে 10%ও নাই। আমি কোথাও কমাতে বলছি না, বাট আই এম জাস্ট টেলিং ইউ সি দ্য আন্ডারস্ট্যান্ডিং অফ ইম্পর্টেন্স। পাওয়ার জেনারেশন আমরা যে লেভেলে ইম্পর্টেন্স দিয়েছি প্রাইমারি এনার্জির ব্যাপারে, সামহাও সেটা হয় নাই। সো একদম গোড়াতে তো হাত দিতে হবে, আমাদের তো অ্যালোকেশন লাগবে, এবং সেটা যাদের লাগবে তাদেরও চাইতে হবে, আর যারা দিবেন তাদেরও বুঝতে হবে যে কেন লাগবে। সো দ্যাটস মাই ফার্স্ট পয়েন্ট। এন্ড সেকেন্ড পয়েন্টে যেটা এসছে সেটা হচ্ছে যে অলরেডি কথাটা এসছে, কিন্তু আমি আবার একটু রিক্যাপ করবো। সেটা হচ্ছে যে এনার্জি রিলেটেড বা এনার্জি মাস্টার প্ল্যান বা এনার্জি ফিউচার প্ল্যান যাই দেখছি, আমি অনেক সময় দেখছি রূপপুরের যে জেনারেশনটা এটা ইনক্লুডেড হচ্ছে না ডেটা। somehow in our prediction, in our estimation, এটা হচ্ছে না, অথচ আমরা তো এটা এস্টাবলিশ করে ফেলেছি। এমনকি 7 এপ্রিলে ফুয়েল লোডিং স্টার্ট হওয়ার কথা ছিল, সেটা হয় নাই, পিছিয়ে যাচ্ছে, মানে বারে বারে পিছাচ্ছে। 2026-এরটা এখন 2027-এও চলে যাবে কিনা আমরা জানি না। সুতরাং, এবং আরেকটা ব্যাপার হয়েছে কি, এটা তো আসলে মিনিস্ট্রি অফ সায়েন্স অ্যান্ড টেকনোলজির আন্ডারে, রূপপুরেরটা। অ্যান্ড ওয়েন উই টক অ্যাবাউট এনার্জি, আমরা তো আসলে ইএমআরডি কিংবা পাওয়ার ডিভিশন এদের কথা বলি। তো তারা আমশিওর এখন ক্লোজলি কাজ করছে, কিন্তু জিনিসটা আমাদের কাছে পরিষ্কার না। মানে এনার্জি সেক্টরে ফিউচার কন্ট্রিবিউশন কেমন হবে, কানেকশনটা কেমন হবে, এটা ক্লিয়ার না। ইটস ভেরি ভাইটাল, কারণ বোঝাই যাচ্ছে 1200 মেগাওয়াট যদি এখন রানিং থাকতো, উই কুড হ্যাভ সেভড আ লট অফ এলএনজি ইম্পোর্ট অলসো, অ্যান্ড আমাদের ক্রাইসিস অনেক কম থাকতো। লাস্টে যে পয়েন্টটা বলবো সেটা হচ্ছে যে একটু আগে কথা মেনশন করলেন আমার আগের একজন বক্তা, যে ফার্টিলাইজার হ্যাজ বিন অ্যান ইস্যু ফর লং টাইম। কারণ আমরা যারা কেমিক্যাল ইঞ্জিনিয়ার, প্রফেসর অফ কেমিক্যাল ইঞ্জিনিয়ার আমরা আছি, আমরা জানি যে বিসিআইসি নিজেদের প্রোডাকশনের চাইতে ইম্পোর্টের দিকে ঝুঁকে গেছে গত 17 বছরে। বড় বড় ফ্যাক্টরিগুলি অকেজো হয়ে যাচ্ছিল শুধুমাত্র মানে ইম্পোর্টের কারণে। আমরা দেখেছি যে প্রেফারেন্স পেয়েছে ইম্পোর্ট রাদার দেন ফ্যাক্টরি রানিং। তো এটার একটা প্রবলেম হয় কি, আমরা যখন ফার্টিলাইজার ইম্পোর্টও করি তখনও কিন্তু আমরা ওভারহেড পে করছি ফ্যাক্টরিগুলার। ক্যালকুলেশন তো বুঝতে হবে। ফার্টিলাইজার ইম্পোর্টের টাকাটা হিসাব করছি, ফ্যাক্টরিগুলি রান করার জন্য যে পেমেন্ট এটা তো চলতেছে। সুতরাং ফ্যাক্টরি রান করলে এমনিতেও সেভ হবে। এটা একটা বড় কথা, যে ফ্যাক্টরিগুলোতে যদি আমরা ইম্পোর্টেড এলএনজি দিয়েও রান করাই, ডিরেক্ট যদি আমরা ইম্পোর্ট করতাম তার চাইতেও সেভিংস হবে, বিকজ উই আর অলরেডি পেইং দ্য ওভারহেড। তো এইটা আসলে জাস্ট কিছুদিন আগেই আমরা ফার্টিলাইজারের ক্ষেত্রে সারের জন্য প্রাইস ফ্যাক্টর মানে ট্যারিফ আমরা সেট করেছি। তা আইডিয়া ছিল যে ফার্টিলাইজারগুলোতে একটু এক্সট্রা ফার্টিলাইজার রিকোয়ারমেন্টের জন্য একটু এক্সট্রা এলএনজি ইম্পোর্ট করা হবে। তো এখন তো অ্যাজ এ হোল ক্রাইসিস, রিপোর্ট বলছে, বিসিআইসি রিপোর্ট বলছে জুন পর্যন্ত যথেষ্ট আছে, স্টোরেজ আছে ফার্টিলাইজারের। বাট দেন এরপরে আমনের মৌসুম আসবে, ক্রাইসিস হতে পারে। এখন ডিপেন্ডিং অন দ্য লেন্থ অফ দিস ওয়ার অ্যান্ড ক্রাইসিস টাইম, ডিরেক্ট ইম্পোর্টও কঠিন হবে। মানে একটা হচ্ছে এলএনজি ইম্পোর্ট করে আপনি প্রোডাকশনে যাবেন, আর সেটা যদি না হয় ইউল ইম্পোর্ট ডিরেক্টলি, তো ডিরেক্ট ইম্পোর্টেও ক্রাইসিস হবে। সো এই মুহূর্তে টেনশনের ব্যাপার না থাকলেও এটার দিকে খুব সিরিয়াসলি তাকাতে হবে। So এই কয়েকটা point, and I hope that, yeah, it will be, I mean,
Thank you,
noted,
ma'am.
inshallah.
I'll
Thank
see
you,
you soon.
sorry.
Dr. Faisal, I'll come to you. Dr. Faisal Khan.
Assalamu alaikum and very good afternoon. I would like to turn to another areas of concern. You know, as a faculty in economics department, we always talk about something like panic buying, black market issues like that. And we always put a lot of examples of different historical cases. But this time, when this war issues unfolded, we see that this kind of happening in Bangladesh. Panic buying was a great problem. And we see that oil was selling outside the market, black market developed. So I would like to request and would like to find out the solutions from the government. How can the government bring some issues to solve this? And another issue I would like to say that this war shows us that how an international war can create a global shock, and we would like to see this this don't happen again. So we need international consensus, and Bangladesh may play a role here. So how our government is planning actually to build a consensus in the world states so that we don't feel this kind of crisis again in a very soon. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you. General Nazrul.
Thank you very much. I'll just highlight 2 points. In Bangladesh, we have National Security Council, primarily deals with the security related to the armed forces or the national security in a visible form. Today, I feel that there should be National Security and Economic Council that relates to the issues which are non-war issues related to. As we have already discussed, that the issues of the labor, issues of food security, and other migration workers, these all will come into the facets of National Security and Economic Council. Secondly, I will urge upon the authority concerned to think how about privatization of refineries of different properties, embedded crude oils that are imported. If we privatize this issue, probably the burden on the government as a whole to bear the load of the energy sector may be reduced. Third point is that please go very deep on the solar system and particularly renewable energy issues. Because as I represent the BEJA, I do truly understand the cancellation of captive power license altogether in one stroke really put many of the investors in real problem. Can we think on these issues that those who really are the good people, they don't make business out of that other than creating the investment and job opportunity? I think they can be given that opportunity. Last but not the least, we need to have the energy bank really updated so that will allow the government to give an actual picture and an app-based system which will be readily available to the people and can understand the locations and the quantity of the energies available across the country. However, there will be some prefill of the national security issues that can be kept as dormant. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Dr. Tabassum.
Assalamu alaikum. I'm Dr. Tabassum. I'm a professor from Jagannath University. What I found from this session is we really need to have our elbow grease. We need to hard work, a lot of things to do. And as we have found that from any conflict, there are opportunities. And here Pakistan is taking the opportunity. And even as a mediator, they're really playing the role. And as a case, if we look into their strategies, being a developing country, I found we are not in that position to be proactive. We have always been reactive. And here, what are the austerity measures that they have taken? I've seen like 50% work from home and switch to online education and fuel allowances for the officials, as well as 25% salary cut for the high income group people. Since we have income inequality, we appreciate the last few years our increase in GDP, but the income inequality is really a concern for us. From the macro point of view, if we want to settle this issue, definitely we need to look into that. And at the same time, they have tried some like a barter trade system because the shipping insurance premium, it is also increasing. So it can be also a solution with our peer participants in this Asian region if we want to address this conflict and its impact on our economic issues. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Tabassum. Lastly, Ambassador Mashfi, if you have anything.
Thank you. Since I'm the last speaker, I will not take too much time. I would just like to focus on one issue that seems to have receded. It's about the export, that our export is reducing, and the issue of export diversification and market diversification. One of the solutions our esteemed speaker mentioned was signing more FTAs, PTAs with various countries in order to maximize our strengths. But being one person who has tried to negotiate a number of PTAs, FTAs with a number of countries, I see that in Bangladesh itself, we are deeply divided. We are deeply divided because signing an FTA would mean giving up on the import taxes, which is a big source of revenue for us. So there is one school of thought which says that reducing import duties would have a significant impact on our revenue generation. And whereas the Commerce Ministry is not in a position to, somehow seems to be unable to convince that the wealth generated from the increased exports would counterbalance that revenue loss. We also have issues with the domestic product producers who are, if I may not say scared, who are somehow shy of the competition that will come when we allow duty-free access or the duty-reduced access for foreign goods. So this is, we often talk about, concluding FTAs, PTAs, and increasingly, once we lose our LDC status, this is something which will be critical. So instead of talking about it and just, making some bland recommendations. We should really look into ourselves and first of all decide on there should be a policy decision on whether we should remain import dependent and import duty dependent for revenue generation, or should we go for aggressively export oriented, which will generate wealth. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador Mashfiq. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for your active participation. Due to paucity of time, we end this open discussion session here. Now it is our privilege to request our today's chief guest, Dr. Rashid Al Mahmood Titumi, the Honorable Advisor to the Honorable Prime Minister for the Ministry of Finance and Ministry of Planning, to kindly deliver his concluding speech. Sir, the floor is yours.
সম্মানিত ও মহাপরিচালক, উপস্থিত সুধীবৃন্দ, সম্মানিত আলোচকবৃন্দ, আমরা মনোযোগ দিয়ে নিঃসন্দেহে আলোচনা শুনেছি, কিন্তু আমার দুর্ভাগ্য যে আপনাদের আলোচনা আমি শুনতে পারিনি। তবে যতটুকু অনুমান করছি, অনুমানের ভিত্তিতে আমার বক্তব্য উপস্থাপন করার চেষ্টা করব। আপনারা জানেন যে এখানে আসলে আমার মনে হয় যে ইটস এ হোম কামিং টু মি, কারণ এই ঘরে আমি বহুতবার আলোচনা করেছি, তর্ক করেছি, বিতর্ক করেছি। তা আজকের যে উপস্থাপিত বিষয় নিঃসন্দেহে তা গুরুত্বপূর্ণ এবং আমাদের কাছে জনগুরুত্বপূর্ণ। আমরা যে আলোচনাগুলো করেছি সেই আলোচনায় বিশ্বের যে পরিস্থিতি, এইটা নিয়ে আমি অতটা সময় ব্যয় করতে চাই না। আমি যেগুলো প্রশ্ন করতে চাই, আমি মূলত 5টি প্রশ্ন করতে চাই এবং তার উত্তর খোঁজার চেষ্টা করব, কারণ সরকারের দায়িত্ব হচ্ছে যে প্রশ্নগুলো ঠিকমতো করা এবং তার মাধ্যমে উত্তরগুলো বের করা। প্রথম কথা হচ্ছে যে আসলে বাংলাদেশে কখনো জ্বালানি নিরাপত্তা নিয়ে কোনো চিন্তা হয়েছে? কাগজে কিন্তু আমি অনেকদিনই জ্বালানি নিরাপত্তা নিয়ে হচ্ছে। আপনি যদি এনডিসিতে যান, অনেক লেকচার পাবেন জ্বালানি নিরাপত্তা নিয়ে। আমি যদি বিসে যাই, অনেক বক্তব্য উপস্থাপন করা হয়েছে জ্বালানি নিরাপত্তা, কিন্তু আমরা উত্তরাধিকার সূত্রে কোনো জ্বালানি নিরাপত্তা পাইনি। বরং হচ্ছে যা ছিল তার চেয়ে কমেছে। আমরা আপনারা মনে আছে, অনেকগুলো বয়ান শুনেছেন। আমরা হাতিরঝিলে আমরা বিদ্যুৎ জ্বালিয়েছি, যে আমরা এত শতাংশ বিদ্যুৎ উৎপাদন করেছি এবং উদযাপন করেছি। কিন্তু জ্বালানি নিরাপত্তার একটি সূচক যদি আমাকে কেউ দেখাতে পারেন, যেমন আমরা জানি যে খাদ্যে এত মেট্রিক টন বাফার থাকতে হবে, আমাকে একটা সূচক বলেন, একটা সূচক বলেন যে এত পরিমাণ আমাদের থাকতে হবে। সেই বেঞ্চমার্ক গুলো কি? আমাদের নিজেদেরকে প্রশ্ন করতে হবে। আমরা অনেক আলোচনা করেছি জ্বালানি নিরাপত্তা নিয়ে, তাহলে আমার সূচকগুলো কি? জ্বালানির বাফার গুলো কি? বরং ইস্টার্ন রিফাইনারি এক সময় 30 দিনের নিরাপত্তা নিশ্চিত করতে পারতো, সেটা এখন 17 দিনে এসে পৌঁছেছে। এই কঠিন প্রশ্নগুলো আমাদেরকে করতে হবে। আপনারা ভালো যে আপনারা কৌশলগত মজুদ বা স্ট্র্যাটেজিক বাফারের কথা বলছেন। কই প্রশ্ন করা দরকার যে আমাদের জনগণ 60,000 কোটি টাকা ভর্তুকি দিচ্ছে জ্বালানি, বিদ্যুৎ এবং জ্বালানি ক্ষেত্রে, এইখানে কোনো বেঞ্চমার্ক নেই এবং সেই মজুদ কোথায়? এই প্রশ্নটা খুব জরুরি এবং আমাদের এই সরকার আসার আগে কেউ এই প্রশ্নটি করেনি। তাহলে আমাদেরকে প্রথমে চিন্তা করতে হবে যে আমরা এটার দিকে যাব কিভাবে। কিন্তু জ্বালানি নিরাপত্তা নিয়ে আমরা বক্তব্য, বয়ান এবং কাগজের কিন্তু বড় একটা বেশ বড় বাফার হবে। যে আমাকে তো বলতে হবে যে এত পরিমাণ এলএনজি থাকতে হবে, এত পরিমাণ পেট্রোল থাকতে হবে, এত পরিমাণ অকটেন থাকতে পারে, এত পরিমাণ আমার হচ্ছে যে কোলের রিজার্ভ থাকতে হবে, এত পরিমাণ আমার, এটা তো পরিমাণগত বিষয় যে 5 লাখ মেট্রিক টন সে খাদ্যের ক্ষেত্রে এতটুকু থাকতে হবে। আমরা কিন্তু অনেক মাস্টার প্ল্যান হয়েছে, মানে প্ল্যানের ছড়াছড়ি, কিন্তু যেটা প্রয়োজনীয়, যেটা নিশ্চিত করতে হবে, সেই বিষয়ে কিন্তু কারোর কোনো উত্তর নেই। এই প্রশ্নের কোনো উত্তর নেই। তাহলে আমাদেরকে যে পরিস্থিতির মধ্যে আমরা অর্থনীতি যেমন হচ্ছে যে একটা ধ্বংসপ্রাপ্ত অর্থনীতি উত্তরাধিকার সূত্রে প্রাপ্ত হয়েছি, যেগুলো নিয়ে আমি আলোচনা করতে চাই না, সেগুলো আপনাদের সবার জানা। তারপরে এসে এই যুদ্ধ শুরু হয়েছে এবং আমাদেরকে এর থেকে উত্তরণ করতে হবে এবং আমরা উত্তরণ করার চেষ্টা করছি। এবং সেক্ষেত্রে আমাদের আরেকটা বাধা আছে, যেটা অতীতের সরকারের কখনো বাধা ছিল না। সেটি হচ্ছে যে ওই সরকারের কোনো জবাবদিহিতা ছিল না। ওই সরকার ইচ্ছে করলে দাম বাড়িয়ে দিতে পারত, যখন ইচ্ছা তখন মনে হতো, যখন ইচ্ছা তখন ভর্তুকি দিতে পারত। যদি জবাবদিহিতা থাকে, জনগণের প্রতি আমাদের এর জবাবদিহিতা থাকে, সেই গণতান্ত্রিক সরকার যদি হয়, তাহলে সে সেই কাজটা করতে পারে না। আপনারা যদি খেয়াল করেন, ফ্যাসিবাদী সময় কতবার দাম বাড়ানো হয়েছে। আমরা দাম বাড়াবো কার জন্য? আমি যদি একটা জবাবদিহিমূলক সরকার হই, আমাকে একটা উপহার দিয়েছে উত্তরাধিকার সূত্রে, যেখানে 10% হচ্ছে মূল্যস্ফীতি এবং দীর্ঘস্থায়ী মূল্যস্ফীতি, এবং দামও বাড়েনি, কর্মসংস্থান সংকুচিত হয়েছে, প্রবৃদ্ধি আরো সংকুচিত হয়েছে। আপনারা দেখেছেন গত প্রান্তিকে আমরা যে এখান থেকে এই সরকার শুরু হয়েছে, 3% প্রবৃদ্ধি হয়েছে। তো এইটা হচ্ছে আমাদের বাস্তবতা। আমরা কি বাস্তবতার থেকে চলে যাব? না, চলে যাব না। আমাদের ইতিহাস তা বলে না। এইরকম একটা তেল সংকটের ইতিহাস আমাদের ছিল, আপনারা যদি মনে করেন 1970-এর দশকে। আমরা সংকটকে আপনার সুযোগে পরিণত করেছি এবং ইতিহাস তাই বলে। 1970 দশকে যখন হচ্ছে তেল সংকট চলছিল, তখন সব অর্থনীতিবিদ সঙ্গত কারণেই বলবেন যে এতে করে লেনদেন ভারসাম্য বা ব্যালেন্স অফ পেমেন্টের উপরে বিরাট অভিঘাত হবে, যেমন আমরা এখন বলছি। কিন্তু আমাদের সময়, আমাদের শহীদ প্রেসিডেন্ট জিয়াউর রহমানের সময় এই সংকট যখন চলছিল, তখন যে কোনো সংকট চললে আপনি যদি খেয়াল করেন, তাহলে কেউ না কেউ এর থেকে লাভবান হয়। অর্থাৎ একটা উদ্বৃত্ত তহবিল সংগৃহীত হচ্ছিল মধ্যপ্রাচ্যের দেশগুলোতে, আর আমাদের উদ্বৃত্ত জনগণ ছিল। তখন আমরা কৌশলগত বাস্তববাদ অনুসরণ করে আমাদের যেখানে উদ্বৃত্ত তহবিল আছে, সেইখানে আমাদের উদ্বৃত্ত জনগণ দিয়ে সেই সমস্যার সমাধান করেছিলাম। আমরা যদি কেতাবি ঢঙে যেতাম, হা হুত্তাশ করতাম যে লেনদেন ভারসাম্যের কি হবে, মূল্যস্ফীতির কি হবে, এটা আমরা বলবো এবং এটা নিয়ে আমরা করব। কিন্তু আমি যেটা বলার চেষ্টা করছি, যে আমরা আমাদের অতীত ইতিহাস বলে যে কোনো সংকটকে সুযোগে রূপান্তর করা। এবং দ্বিতীয়ত, আমাদের সরকার যখনই রাষ্ট্র পরিচালনার দায়িত্ব পেয়েছে, তখনই আসলে সংকটের মতো পেয়েছে। আপনারা জানেন, দুর্ভিক্ষ পীড়িত, যুদ্ধ বিধ্বস্ত একটা অর্থনীতি, যে অর্থনীতিকে যেভাবে সংজ্ঞায়িত করা হয়েছিল, ওই শব্দমালা, এখানে জাতীয় নিরাপত্তা নিরাপত্তা পরিষদের কথা বলা হয়েছে, একটি দেশের জাতীয় নিরাপত্তা পরিষদের বৈঠকে ওই দেশকে, আমাদের দেশকে যেভাবে নামাঙ্কিত করা হয়েছিল, সেই নামাঙ্কিত শব্দের থেকে আমরা একটা ভায়াবল স্টেট দেখেছি শহীদ প্রেসিডেন্ট জিয়াউর রহমানের সময়। তারপরে আমরা খেয়াল করেছি যে একটা স্বৈরাচারী সরকার যেটা জনগণের আন্দোলনের মাধ্যমে আমরা সেখান থেকে একটা গণতন্ত্রের পুনরুযাত্রা দেখেছি। সেই সময় আমাদের মরহুমা বেগম খালেদা জিয়ার আমরা অর্থনীতির বিরাট রকমের আধুনিকীকরণ দেখেছি। পৃথিবীর ইতিহাসে আমরা চীনে বলি যে আমরা পৃথিবীতে চীনে সবচেয়ে দারিদ্র বিমোচিত হয়েছে। আপনি যদি মরহুম বেগম খালেদা জিয়ার সময় দেখেন প্রায় 2 কোটি মানুষ দারিদ্র সীমার থেকে মুক্ত হয়েছে। এটা বাংলাদেশ তথা দক্ষিণ এশিয়ায় একটা রেকর্ড। দ্বিতীয়ত হচ্ছে যে নারীর আনুষ্ঠানিক শ্রমবাজারে অংশগ্রহণ, এবং সেটাও আসলে রেকর্ড। এর পরে কিন্তু ওই মাত্রা তেমন বাড়েনি। তৃতীয় যদি আমরা চিন্তা করি তাহলে দেখব হচ্ছে যে অর্থনীতির কাঠামোগত রূপান্তর, অর্থাৎ কৃষি নির্ভর অর্থনীতি থেকে শিল্প খাতের মোট দেশজ উৎপাদনে অংশের পরিমাণ বৃদ্ধি। এবং চতুর্থত আমরা যদি খেয়াল করি তাহলে কতকগুলো খাদ্যে বিশেষ করে দানাদার শস্যের ক্ষেত্রে উৎপাদন 3 গুণ হয়েছে। এবং পঞ্চমত যেটি আমরা লক্ষ্য করেছি, যেটার জন্য আমরা এখন চিন্তা করছি, সেটি হচ্ছে যে আমাদের রেমিটেন্স এবং গার্মেন্টসের অবস্থা $1 বিলিয়ন মার্ক ক্রস করেছে, এবং গ্রামীণ অর্থনীতিতে একটা কল্যাণকর রাষ্ট্র তৈরি হয়েছে। এইরকম একটা পরিস্থিতিতে এসে আমরা যে কথাগুলো বলছি সেখানে আপনারা খেয়াল করেছেন যে আমাদের যদি আমরা 3-4টা যদি পরিসংখ্যান দেখি, ডিজেলের ক্ষেত্রে আমরা লক্ষ্য করছি যে 1,66,000 টনের এর মতো আছে, এবং আমরা আশা করছি যে 1,38,000 টন চলে আসবে। আমরা যদি অকটেনের কথা খেয়াল করি তাহলে 10,500 টন আছে, 71,000 টনের এর আসার পথে। আমরা যদি পেট্রোলের কথা খেয়াল করি তাহলে দেখব যে 16,000 টন আমাদের আছে এবং 36,000 টন আসার পথে। আমরা যদি খেয়াল করি, আমরা জানি এবং আপনারাও জানেন, এখানে নিঃসন্দেহে আলোচনা হয়েছে যে গ্যাসের ক্ষেত্রে কিভাবে আমদানি নির্ভর একটা করা হয়েছে, এবং যাতে করে আপনার স্বজনতোষী পৃষ্ঠপোষকতার সংস্কৃতি অর্থনীতি বিরাজ করা যায়, এবং কি আইনি কাঠামো দিয়ে কিভাবে পৃষ্ঠপোষকতার আর অর্থনীতি বজায় রাখা যায়, এবং যেটা আমরা লক্ষ্য করেছি এলএনজির ক্ষেত্রে প্রায় 114%। আপনারা যদি ফ্ল্যাট প্রাইস চিন্তা করেন তাহলে দেখবেন যে হচ্ছে যে 114% পর্যন্ত প্রায় বেড়েছে। কারণ আমরা যদি $10 হিসাব করি এখন $21 মতো, তাহলে 114% আপনার বেড়েছে। আমরা যদি অকটেনের ক্ষেত্রে আপনারা এই যে বাজারের কথা বললেন, আসলে তো আমার প্রতিদিন লাগে কি 1100 থেকে 1200 টন। আমরা দেখি যদি আপনি যদি 7 দিনের এর হিসেব করেন, সেটা যদি 2 দিনে নিয়ে যায় তাহলে কি হবে সেটা আমরা লক্ষ্য করছি। আমরা যদি কয়লার ক্ষেত্রে দেখি, সাধারণত এখন আমরা আশা করছি যে 7,000 মেট্রিক টন থেকে মেগাওয়াট থেকে 9,000 মেগাওয়াটের যদি দেই, আর আমরা যদি গরম সময় হিসাব করি তাহলে দেখব হচ্ছে যে 15,000 মেগাওয়াট পর্যন্ত মনে হয় বিদ্যুৎ দরকার হবে। তো এই রকম আমি স্মরণ থেকে বলছি, আমার মনে হয় পরিসংখ্যানগুলো ঠিক আছে। তার মানে তাহলে আপনার আর যদি চিন্তা করেন তাহলে আমরা কি করব, কি পরিস্থিতির মধ্যে আছি, তাহলে আমাদের প্রথম কাজ হচ্ছে আপনার যে ইমার্জেন্সি রেসপন্স, এবং আমরা সেটা করছি। তারপরে হচ্ছে মিডিয়াম টার্ম, অর্থাৎ হচ্ছে যে সত্যি আসলে জ্বালানি নিরাপত্তা গড়ে তোলা, এবং জ্বালানি নিরাপত্তার উপায় হচ্ছে মানে আপনাকে এনার্জি মিক্সের দিকে যেতে হবে। তার মানে এনার্জি মিক্সের ক্ষেত্রে যেতে হবে। তারপরে আপনাকে লোড পয়েন্টটা হিসাব করতে হবে যে আমি কিভাবে কোন সময় কি ধরনের সরবরাহ নিশ্চিত করব। তো এইগুলো যদি খেয়াল করেন, আবার আমাকে লাফ দিয়ে আপনার নবায়নযোগ্য বিদ্যুতের দিকেও যেতে পারবো না। তো আমাকে তো চিন্তা করতে হবে, আবার আমাকে বাসযোগ্য বাংলাদেশ রেখে যেতে হবে। তার মানে হচ্ছে যে জীবাশ্ম জ্বালানিরও কমতে হবে। তো এইরকম একটা পরিস্থিতির মধ্যে দিয়ে আমাদেরকে যেতে হবে যাতে এনার্জি মিক্স আস্তে আস্তে অন্যদিকে যায়। আপনারা বলেছেন পারমাণবিক বিদ্যুৎ, আমরা আশা করছিলাম যে 7ই এপ্রিল শুরু হওয়ার কথা ছিল, এবং আমরা আশা করছিলাম যে নভেম্বর নাগাদ 925 মেগাওয়াট ওইখান থেকে পাওয়া যাবে, কিন্তু এখনো পাওয়া যায়নি। তা আমরা আমরা এইভাবে চেষ্টা করছি, অর্থাৎ হচ্ছে যে আমরা বলার চেষ্টা করছি যে আমাদের three-pronged strategy is working on energy. এক নম্বর হচ্ছে উৎসের বহুধাকরণ, অর্থাৎ বিভিন্ন উৎস এবং বিভিন্ন জ্বালানির এর উৎসগুলো নিশ্চিত করা, এক। দ্বিতীয় হচ্ছে যে আপনার খুবই জরুরি বিষয়, সেটি হচ্ছে যে জ্বালানির অর্থায়ন নিশ্চিত করা। আপনারা নিঃসন্দেহে এখানে আলোচনা করেছেন যে আমাদের কিন্তু বিভিন্ন উৎস থেকে অর্থায়ন নিশ্চিত করা হয়েছে, এবং অর্থায়নের ক্ষেত্রে আমরা মনে আছে আপনাদের জানা আছে বাংলাদেশকে একটা ঋণের গহ্বরে রেখে যাওয়া হয়েছে। সেই ক্ষেত্রে আমাদের মনে রাখতে হবে যে আমরা ঋণ গ্রহণ করার ক্ষেত্রে সুদের হার কিরকম এবং পরিশোধের সময়সীমা কত, এটা যদি হিসেব করেন তাহলে দেখবেন যে ইতিমধ্যেই বহুপাক্ষিক যে সংস্থাগুলো থেকে আমরা ট্রেড ফাইন্যান্সের ক্ষেত্রে ইসলামিক ডেভেলপমেন্ট ব্যাংকের থেকে আমাদের ইতিমধ্যেই এই ব্যবস্থা আছে, তাছাড়াও হচ্ছে যে আইএফসির ক্ষেত্রে আছে, এবং অন্যদিকে যদি খেয়াল করেন আইএমএফ এর বাজেট সাপোর্ট, তারপরে হচ্ছে যে ওয়ার্ল্ড ব্যাংকের বাজেট সাপোর্ট, এশিয়ান ডেভেলপমেন্ট ব্যাংকের বাজেট সাপোর্ট, এআইবির বাজেট সাপোর্ট। সো এইগুলোর মাধ্যমে অর্থায়ন কিন্তু নিশ্চিত করা হয়েছে যাতে করে এটা ব্যবস্থা নেওয়া যায়। তৃতীয় বিষয় হচ্ছে যে দামের সমন্বয়করণ। তাহলে দামের সমন্বয়করণের ক্ষেত্রে আমি বলেছি যে আপনি যদি ডেসপটিক হন, আপনি যদি অটোক্র্যাট হন, আপনি যদি নন লেজিটিমেট হন, আপনার কোনো অসুবিধা নেই। এবং এই তিনটাই ফ্যাসিবাদী সরকার ছিল, যার ফলে আপনারা দেখেছেন কি পরিমাণে যে বারবার কিভাবে দাম বাড়িয়ে একটা গোষ্ঠীতন্ত্রকে লালন পালন করা হয়েছে। তাহলে আমরা জানি, সূত্র বলে যে হচ্ছে যে বিশ্ব বাজারে যখন দাম বাড়বে সাথে সাথে দামের আমাকে সমন্বয় করতে হবে, এ বিষয়ে আমরা একমত। কিন্তু দুটো প্রাসঙ্গিক বিষয় আছে, বাংলাদেশের বিষয় আছে। প্রথম বিষয় হচ্ছে যে বাংলাদেশে আমরা 9% মূল্যস্ফীতির মধ্যে আছে। যখনই দাম বাড়বে তখন মূল্যস্ফীতি কি হবে, এবং যেখানে হচ্ছে প্রকৃত মজুরি বাড়েনি, এবং যেখানে হচ্ছে বেকারত্ব, ছদ্ম বেকারত্বের পরিমাণ অনেক বেশি, নারী বেকারত্বের বিরাট অংশ এবং শিক্ষিত বেকারত্ব অনেক, সেই পরিপ্রেক্ষিতে আমাকে দাম যে সমন্বয় করতে হবে সেটা একটা মূল্যস্ফীতির কারণে সরকারকে চিন্তা করতে হবে। যদি সেটা জনগণের কাছে দায়বদ্ধ সরকার হয়, তাহলে আমাদের প্রথম যে আমরা এই কারণে সেটা হচ্ছে যে সরকার যে কোনো সংকট, সেটা অনিশ্চয়তার থেকে আসুক বা নির্ধারিত বা পূর্ব নির্ধারিত অথবা অপূর্ব নির্ধারিত হোক, যে কোনো সংকট অবশ্যই ডিসপ্রপোর্শনেট ইম্প্যাক্ট হয়। বাট সবচেয়ে বেশি ডিসপ্রপোর্শনেট ইম্প্যাক্ট হয় যদি সেটা জনগণের কাছে দায়বদ্ধ সরকার হয়। এটা হচ্ছে আমাদের জ্বালানি সংকটের ব্যাপারে আমার প্রথম বিষয়। দ্বিতীয় বিষয় আপনারা যে আলোচনা করেছেন, নিঃসন্দেহে আমি আর বেশি সময় নেব না, কারণ আমাকে আরেকটা সমস্যা, আমি অবশ্যই আর একটু থাকতাম কিন্তু আমাকে আরেকটা প্রোগ্রামে যেতে হবে। আপনারা দ্বিতীয় বিষয় যেটা আমার ধারণা, উৎপাদন, তারপরে সরবরাহ শৃঙ্খলা, এই সব নিয়ে আলোচনা করেছে, অর্থাৎ প্রোডাকশন নেটওয়ার্ক অ্যান্ড সাপ্লাই চেইন ডিসরাপশনস। তা আমরা আপনার খেয়াল করেছেন এবং সেখানে উল্লেখ করা হয়েছে, এবং আমার ধারণা সেখানে উল্লেখ করা হয়েছে যে তিনটি বিষয় নিশ্চিত করা দরকার। একটা হচ্ছে বহুমুখীকরণ, প্রতিযোগিতায় সক্ষমতা এবং উৎপাদনশীলতা বৃদ্ধি। কারণ এই তিনটি না করলে যেটা আমরা বাধ্য হয়েছি, অনেক গল্পটা বলা হয়েছে যে স্বল্পোন্নত দেশের তালিকা থেকে আমরা বেরিয়ে যাব, এবং অনেক স্মুথ ট্রানজিশন স্ট্র্যাটেজি বা এসটিএস এর গল্প বলা হয়েছে। কিন্তু আমরা দেখেন নির্ভরশীলতার যদি আপনি পরিমাপ করেন তাহলে তৈরি পোশাক শিল্পের এর আগের থেকে কত পরিমাণ বেড়েছে, এগুলো তো সব অঙ্কের ব্যাপার। নির্ভরশীলতার যদি সূচক তৈরি করেন এবং অথবা কেন্দ্রীকরণের মানে সেন্ট্রালাইজেশন আর কনসেন্ট্রেশন ইন্ডেক্স করেন, তাহলে দেখবেন যে আমার নির্ভরতা রেশিওটা কত বেড়েছে এবং এটা বেড়েছে। সেই জন্য আমরা আপনারা খেয়াল করেছেন এবং আমরা প্রচন্ড পরিমাণে চেষ্টা করছি এবং আশা করি যে আমরা সেদিকে যাব। আমরা দেখছি যে আমাদেরকে 5টা অগ্রাধিকার খাত হিসাবে আমরা বিবেচনায় নিয়ে এসেছি যে কিভাবে বহুমুখীকরণ করা হবে, অর্থাৎ কৃষি এবং কৃষিজাত পণ্যজাত শিল্প এক। দ্বিতীয় হচ্ছে যে আপনার ঔষধ শিল্প এবং ঔষধ শিল্পের বিদেশে সম্প্রসারণ, বাজার সম্প্রসারণ। তৃতীয় হচ্ছে যে চামড়া শিল্প এবং চামড়াজাত শিল্পের সম্প্রসারণ এবং রপ্তানি বৃদ্ধি। আপনার চতুর্থত আমরা যেটা করার চেষ্টা করছি সেটি হচ্ছে যে লাইট ইঞ্জিনিয়ারিংকে কিভাবে আমরা আরো বাড়াবো। এবং পঞ্চমত হচ্ছে যে আইসিটি এবং আইসিটি এনেবলড, এবং এটা নিয়ে ডিটেল পরিকল্পনা নিঃসন্দেহে আপনার তার সাথে সাথে, কারণ আপনারা খেয়াল করেছেন কালকে অর্থনৈতিক সুমারি বেরিয়েছে। অর্থনৈতিক সুমারিতে যদি খেয়াল করেন কিভাবে শিল্পকে কমিয়ে দেওয়া হয়েছে, শিল্প উৎপাদনের পরিসংখ্যান আমরা দেখেছেন। আমরা তো আর পরিসংখ্যান তৈরিতে এখন আর কোনো হস্তক্ষেপ করি না, আমি কিন্তু দেখিনি, আমি আপনাদের মতোই এই পত্রিকা করেছি কিভাবে শিল্প উৎপাদন এবং কিভাবে বন্ধ কারখানা কলকারখানা বাড়ছে। তাহলে আমরা প্রথমে চেষ্টা করছি এবং এই বিষয় নিয়ে আমাদের ভবিষ্যতে আপনাদেরকে আরো বিস্তারিত জানাবো যে কিভাবে উত্তরাঞ্চলে অর্থাৎ রংপুর এবং রাজশাহী বিভাগে তার যে উৎপাদিত উদ্বৃত্ত আছে সেই উদ্বৃত্ত থেকে কাজ করা যায়। যেমন হচ্ছে যে আপনি যদি খেয়াল করেন উত্তরাঞ্চলে অন্তত 4টি জিনিসের আমাদের উদ্বৃত্ত আছে। একটা হচ্ছে যে আমাদের উদ্বৃত্ত আছে ফসলের, অর্থাৎ ভুট্টাই বলেন, আপনি যদি দেখেন যে পরিমাণ ভুট্টা উৎপাদন হয় সেটা কিন্তু, বা আলু বলেন, বা দ্বিতীয়ত হচ্ছে যে আমাদের উত্তরাঞ্চলে উদ্বৃত্ত আছে বিভিন্ন রকমের ফল, সেটা আম হোক লিচু হোক। তৃতীয় যদি খেয়াল করেন অনেক সুন্দর সুন্দর ফুল হয়, যেমন টিউলিপ, যখন ইউরোপে যখন ওইটা হয় না আমাদের উত্তরাঞ্চলে হয়। চতুর্থত আপনি যদি খেয়াল করেন তাহলে দুগ্ধজাত, যেমন গাইবান্ধা বা অন্যান্য যে চরাঞ্চলে যে পরিমাণে দুগ্ধজাত, এবং আমাদের এখন হচ্ছে মোজারেলা চিজ হচ্ছে, আপনি যদি ঠাকুরগাঁয়ে যান তাহলে মোজারেলা চিজ দেখবেন। তাহলে এইগুলোকে আমরা কিভাবে সামনের দিকে এগিয়ে নিয়ে যাবো, আমরা কোনো কথা বলতে চাই না। যেমন আপনার অনেকেই জানেন না যে বেগম খালেদা জিয়ার সময় এই পরিমাণে মানুষ দারিদ্র থেকে মুক্ত হয়েছিল, কারণ কথা মালার রাজনীতি অনেক হয়েছে। ওই হাতিরপুলে আমরা বিরাট একটা বিদ্যুৎ জ্বালাইতে চাই না, এত পরিমাণ বিদ্যুৎ আমরা উৎপাদন করেছি এবং তার ফসল আজকে আপনি আমি সবাই ভোগ করছি। আমরা এইভাবে, আমি আরো বিস্তারিত পরবর্তী সময় যদি আপনারা চান, আমরা কিভাবে বহুমুখীকরণ করতে চাই, প্রতিযোগিতায় সক্ষমতা বৃদ্ধি করতে চাই এবং উৎপাদনশীলতা বৃদ্ধি করতে চাই। ইতিমধ্যে কিন্তু আপনারা খেয়াল করেছেন যে বাংলাদেশ ব্যাংক তার কতগুলো ফ্যাসিলিটি অনুযায়ী সুদের হার পরিবর্তন করে যাতে আমাদের কোনোভাবেই আমদানিতে ব্যাহত না হয় সেগুলো ব্যবস্থা করছে। এলপিজির ক্ষেত্রে আপনারা দেখেছেন। তাহলে আমি আর বিস্তারিত, এটা হচ্ছে যদি 3 নম্বর হচ্ছে ম্যাক্রো ইকোনমিক ম্যানেজমেন্ট। আমরা নিশ্চিত করতে চাই যে $30 বিলিয়ন আমাদের রিজার্ভ থাকতে হবে। সেই জন্য সেই হিসেব করে আমরা ব্যবস্থাপনাকে এমন ভাবে রাখতে চাই এবং একই সাথে আমরা কোনো নির্দেশিত ব্যবস্থা চালু রাখতে চাই না। ফিসক্যাল এবং মনিটারি পলিসি অথরিটির মধ্যে সমন্বয় সাধন হবে, কিন্তু একে অপরের উপরে, যে আমি অর্থ সচিব কিন্তু আসলে বাংলাদেশ ব্যাংক কিভাবে চলবে আপনারা সেই গল্প জানেন এবং সে পালিয়ে গেছে। তাহলে বাংলাদেশে কোনোদিন গভর্নর পালায়নি, তাহলে সেইটা আমাদেরকে দেখতে হবে যে আপনার কিভাবে এইটা করা যায়। এবং এই যে আমরা ইতিমধ্যেই কতগুলো পদক্ষেপ নিয়েছি যে যাতে করে আপনার বিশেষ ব্যবস্থা থাকে এবং সেই ক্ষেত্রে আমদানি নিশ্চিত করা যায়, যাতে করে আমাদের যতটুকু ক্ষমতা আছে অর্থাৎ বাফার এটা খুবই কম, এবং আমরা ইসলামিক ডেভেলপমেন্ট ব্যাংক যেটা আসলে ইস্টার্ন রিফাইনারি লিমিটেড ট্যুর যে ব্যবস্থা করছে সেইটার ব্যাপারে আমরা চেষ্টা করছি যাতে করে এটা দ্রুত ও ব্যবস্থা করা যায়।